Hey y'all, I'm Dan Hamilton, host of the Next Gen Warrior Show. As always, the Next Gen Warrior Show is brought to you by Chairman George P. Bush and our staff at the Texas Veterans Land Board. For more information about the resources provided by the VLB, type in your browser vlb.texas.gov and all the information that you need will be there. Today, I am joined by Christopher Mendez. He is a Marine Corps veteran, and he is also the General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer at Commonwealth Asset Management LP. Chris, it's so good to have you on the show. It's always great to be sitting down with another Marine Corps veteran.
Sure.
Before we jump into your military service, and usually when we start these conversations, I do start off with kind of a military background, but I'm actually interested in hearing about the formative years prior to the military, and during that time, what led you to join the Marine Corps?
Yeah, of course, happy to. I would say, first, I just want to say thank you for having me, and thank you to you and your team for doing this. This is incredible. It's great that you're highlighting veterans and veteran stories. It's impressive, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation. So yeah, I appreciate that. It's an interesting background, and I tell folks all the time that I probably have one of the most non-traditional paths to becoming a lawyer, to becoming a Marine, to being a GC, CCO at an asset management firm, and those earlier years are certainly I would say defining in how I've navigated my pre and post Marine Corps life. What's interesting about that story is that I would say up until probably, within the last maybe 5 years or so, I sort of shied away from that story, right? It wasn't something that I would say I was proud of, just giving the amount of, struggle and the amount of difficulties that we experience as kids, right? So by way of background, my father came here from Guatemala in the early 80s. As a teenager, my mother gave birth to me as a teenager. So my mom was about 16 years old when I was born. I'm the oldest of five. Grew up in New Jersey, right? So as you can imagine, growing up in the 80s, teenage mom, right? So don't even really need to get really into the details. That you could just appreciate that. I mean, the amount of struggle that would emanate from something like that, or at least that experience. So from a very early age, I had to learn independence and self-sufficiency, and try to navigate life that was not the life that I wanted, right? It was not the life that I saw others living, a life that presented more challenges than any child should experience. Just from toddler all the way up through high school, just challenges that you shouldn't have to experience generally. I think I attribute this to both my mother and my father, and I guess our family generally. But I think one of the things that a couple of character traits that sort of permeated that entire experience was grit and resiliency and determination and ability to make things happen despite the odds. And I think those things really catapulted my career post Marine Corps. So I was already on my own at probably 17 years old, 18 prior to graduating high school, already on my own, right? I mean, when I was growing up, I don't think we really, the concept, to me at least, the concept of college and going to college, it wasn't something that was discussed often, right? Because it just wasn't a concept. I think a lot of folks can resonate with that, or at least that resonates with folks, the opportunity to go to college and that sort of thing. I just wanted to work, to be honest with you. I mean, that was really what I was after as a high schooler. Then of course, that led to the Marine Corps.
So can I ask you, I can look back at myself at maybe around 14 or 15 is when I started to get or develop a real interest in current events, in public affairs, in international relations. Now that you're a general counsel and you have a leadership in a large firm, can you identify maybe your life now? Were those interests already prevalent at that same age, at 15 or 16, before you joined the Marine Corps? Or had you not really identified a path or maybe a career that you were interested in?
Yeah, I think, probably two themes really, emanated from that period. I certainly was not worldly. I certainly was not, cognizant of what was really going on outside of my town, outside of my community. I don't think, I really at that time thought that way. But I think two things, or at least two ways of thinking, led me to get to that point. One of which was questioning everything. Why did certain things happen? Why are things happening the way they're happening? And that sort of insatiable desire to get answers to questions. And then the second component of that would be what's out there for me. I know there's something out there for me. I know there's something better than what I'm currently experiencing, and better than what I'm currently dealing with. What is it? And I need to go out there and find it, right? So I was a bit, just appreciative of those two questions, but I didn't really have that worldview. I don't think that really happened until I graduated Marine Corps boot camp and actually, was in the Marine Corps.
So what was the deciding factor then of joining the Marine Corps?
Yeah, sure. So in 2001, I was, graduated high school, right? So I graduated in June 2001. Almost didn't graduate. I guess just some decisions that I had made as a senior in high school almost kept me from graduating. Like I said, I was already on my own. I was working two jobs, trying to survive, trying to pay my rent, and it was tough. I was definitely struggling, sort of facing eviction every single month, trying to just, pay my bills. I think, as an 17, 18-year-old, I think it was just didn't appreciate the amount of risk that I was putting myself in. And 9/11 happened. And, I think that was the moment where I stopped thinking about myself, right? I stopped thinking about, what is out there for me. And it became about the country. It became something bigger than myself, right? And I thought, two things. One, it just felt like the right thing to do at the right time to put on the uniform and go serve the country and be part of something that was bigger than myself. And then I also knew deep down that it would be beneficial to me. It would give me that grounding. It would give me that stability. It would give me a sense of a floor underneath me, right? And I think those two things combined is what just encouraged me to enlist in the Marine Corps. So I did in December 2001.
What was your military service like? In what ways did it impact either your career trajectory, as you mentioned afterwards, or just change you maybe from a personal perspective about how you approach things on a day-to-day way?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find any Marine who said that, the Marine Corps did not have an impression on them or did not change them forever. I think while there are a lot of similarities in stories, I don't think you're going to hear any story that's the same. Mine is certainly not common in the sense that I didn't think I was going to do any more than 4 years, and I didn't. I did 4 years active duty, 3 years reserves. I enlisted already with the end goal in mind, right? To do my 4 years, to give my service, and try to have something that I could do post Marine Corps service. So I did the 4 years active duty, got out, did 3 years reserves, and I would say some of the bigger themes, obviously, the Marine Corps character traits that are instilled upon us, as Marines. It just gave me a sense of purpose and gave me values. It gave me some guiding principles to lead my life with. Obviously the camaraderie and the team spirit, that sort of collegiality of being in the Marine Corps. And I would say, most importantly, leadership and decisiveness. And it did not matter my age necessarily so much, my rank as either. It was about being a leader. It was about stepping up and taking charge and leading on behalf of your team and being able to make decisions. And I think that those two particular traits have been with me and enabled me to really catapult my career post Marine Corps, right? Just being a leader and being decisive.
So did you go to law school right after, or you started pursuing a college degree, I'm guessing, at that point, and kind of have, your compass pointed towards, working in law or in the finance industry? And, what was maybe the catalyst for that?
Yeah, sure. So, this is a a prime example of, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. So, I started doing, I started working on my undergraduate degree as soon as I enlisted, right? I mean, that was one of the first things I did when I was stationed, when I got stationed, was again, how do I get to school? How do I go to school? How do I start, earning college credits? And so, 4 years came up and I wasn't done. I was still working on my college degree. So when I got out, got off active duty, moved back up north and enrolled at Temple University. And I just continued on. I took classes at night. I was working full time in the evenings. I was going to class. I finished up my undergrad, took the LSAT, and did the same thing with law school. All part time in the evenings on a GI Bill. Working full time. And like I said, I gosh, you're talking like Monday through Thursday, 6 to 10, after working all day, getting home, 10, 11 o'clock, after sitting on the train, right? Getting home 10, 11 o'clock at night, studying, going to bed 12, 1 o'clock, getting up 5, 6 o'clock in the morning the next day and doing it over and over and over for, almost, 8 years. It was a long, tough path.
One thing that I have identified for myself after I got out of the military was when I moved back to Texas after being stationed at Camp Pendleton. And can I ask you where you were stationed at? Because you said
sure.
You came back home, right?
Yeah, I was with VMGR 252 in Cherry Point, North Carolina, and then I was with Mag 49 in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania.
So what was your network like when you got back home? Because that's, I've identified a couple things in these conversations, and I'll kind of lay them out for you and then see if maybe you can touch on them. Veterans have a great set of soft skills in terms of leadership, the ability to serve, working in a team. You mentioned those. I do think we lack the technical skills or the hard skills, unless you are an aircraft mechanic and you go do that, or you're maybe a military police officer and then you go into that network. But there to me, we have the soft skills. We probably lack the technical skills that we have to go pursue in a degree or a trade school or some sort of program that can help you develop the technical skills. But the third leg of that stool is community. And I wanted to know, if you immediately enrolled in school, was that how you found your community? And what did you do to kind of build out, again, those three legs of the stool there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I can tell you, that first 2 years getting out of the Marine Corps, especially that first 6 months was tough. It was probably one of the hardest experiences in my life, getting out and trying to assimilate into a new community, trying to rebuild friendships, trying to just be part of something. As I had said earlier, the Marine Corps is such a strong community. You become friends with people that you normally wouldn't become friends with, right? You have friends from all over the country, right? And you have this shared bond, and that's hard to replicate in your personal community sometimes, especially having transitioned out. So, that first 2 years was tough. Tough from two perspectives. One was, I was fortunate enough to get a pretty good job right out of the Marine Corps, and in sort of quote unquote corporate America, if you will. And this was long before we had organizations that were really focused on veteran transition issues, kind of bridging the gap between military service into corporate America. Those great opportunities didn't exist when I got out of the Marine Corps. That was 2006. So I had the challenge of trying to fit in within a corporate setting, which presented its own challenges. I was still carrying myself as a sergeant of Marines, right? Like I was still carrying myself that way, and I held myself to a certain standard, and I held others to that standard, and it's a pretty high standard, right? And I think also I was a bit, still rough around the edges, pretty militant, pretty walled off, right? And to no fault of the folks around me, it's hard to assimilate to somebody like that. It's hard to relate to somebody like that. So I think oftentimes we give our civilian peers a hard time, but you put yourself in their position. It's hard. It is hard, right? Because a lot of times they hold you in high regards as well, right? So it's kind of this weird dynamic. And then on top of that, I was trying to go to class at night, right? And I was trying to go to class. I'm in class, a lot of folks much younger than me. And I just couldn't relate, right? It was tough. It was very hard many times in that first year, I really questioned whether or not I made the right decision of getting out of the Marine Corps. Right. I mean, I thought, my goodness, I had a good path in the Marine Corps. I enlist, 3 more times and I'd get my 20 years, I'd retire. Right. And so, I questioned myself a lot. And I wouldn't say I had sort of the traditional mentors or the community that we think of now. So it was tough. So to answer your question, pretty roundabout way, is that I just kept faith and just believed that the path that I was on and where I was aiming and where I was trying to go was going to happen. And then 2 was looking to those folks that I sought to emulate, those folks that I wanted to be like, and just trying to just mirror their behavior, mirror their paths, mirror just how they conducted themselves, right? So I'm sure you heard this in the Marine Corps as well. Always carry yourself with thinking about the next rank or 2 ranks above. So if you're a lance corporal, carry yourself as a sergeant. If you want to be seen as a sergeant, carry yourself as a sergeant. If you want to be seen as a manager, as a CFO, a CEO, a general counsel, carry yourself that way. And so I try to look for folks who I thought, personified that, or at least carried themselves in that way. And that's ultimately how I kind of got that assimilation, if you will. But I don't think I really had any direct, peers on that front.
How do you prevent burnout?
Yeah, I try to, as best as I can, not let it happen to begin with, being mindful that it's a possibility, recognizing when burnout, just burning out and getting to a position of non-performance due to overperformance, trying to prevent that before it happens, getting ahead of it. So, for me, a lot of it is.
Did you ever have to learn that the hard way when you were hustling, you just got out of the Marine Corps, you didn't have the community, you're working a new job, you're going to school at night. Did you have to learn that lesson the hard way, or have you been good at managing your time, managing your resources, and getting the job done?
No, I definitely learned the hard way. I was definitely sacrificing myself a lot. I was sacrificing relationships, sleep, health, nutrition. I just didn't have the time for any of that stuff, right? At the time. And I don't think, at that point, I really appreciated it, right, as much. How important, just peak performance and nutrition and diet, exercise. I didn't realize that they all go hand in hand. They are so much more important than we think. And now I am. So, burnout for me, a lot of times just getting ahead of it before it happens. I tell people all the time, I had a gunny in the Marine Corps, used to say all the time, if you had time to sleep, you had time to get it done. And I kind of carried that phrase with me. So there's no excuse, right? There's no excuse to not get things done. But now, it's just good routines, good habits, really dialed in on nutrition, really dialed in on, the basics, right? Just getting good rest. Trying to be focused, eliminating distraction, being mindful of the content I'm consuming, being mindful of who I'm surrounding myself with, and just making sure that I'm firing on all cylinders with those things in mind. And obviously unplugging, right? Getting good exercise, having some good distractions, right? Being outside and that sort of thing.
Did it take you, was there an emotional, going back to the burnout question, how did you learn that? Was there also kind of some, I guess I call it, emotional intelligence to learn about yourself in the way that you function best after the Marine Corps? One thing that I have learned after the Marine Corps, and I think all veterans do, is you no longer have somebody telling you how to function, how to manage your time, and telling you what projects to do and when they need to be done. Right. So if you have been able to identify the best way that you operate, and you did lay out some of the things that make you function at your best, make you a high performer, can you walk us through how you either developed those or how long it took you to come up with sort of a routine or a rhythm that you really enjoy and that makes you just get almost excited to get out of bed in the morning?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is just having a good growth mindset, right? Just really being mindful that, I as cliche as it sounds, I really do think you could do anything you want to do. I really do believe it. I never in a million years, thought that, I would be where I'm at coming where I come from. It just doesn't happen, right? It just doesn't happen, right? So, I think, quite a few years ago, just sort of came to that realization that, wow, like I've really come a long way. I can really do anything I really want to do. And it was like, all right, what do I want to do? Right. And I don't know, right? Like what ultimately I want to do, and maybe I can do multiple things. And so, it kind of emanated from that. And then of course, I think it's so important to really know yourself, to really know who you are, understand who you are, understand how you evolve. I think there are very defining moments in our lives, and a lot of them are, fit within, certain periods. Like you started the conversation talking about my childhood, right? Like 0 to 20, and what, things that occurred throughout my life in that period that led into my 30s, and now going into my 40s, right? Like understanding that, knowing myself. So, just things like, journaling and asking tough questions and asking for accountability. I think a lot of those things really enabled me to continue, growing on that front. But it's, it's tough. It's definitely tough, right? I mean, it's constant work. It's something you have to work at every day. It's something that, you've got to be willing to keep going at it, even though you get knocked down, 10 times, you've got to be willing to get up another time and just keep going.
So let me kind of go back in time just a little
Sure.
bit after you
Sure.
finished your bachelor's degree. And what made you interested in going to law school? Was there a specific type of law that you were hoping to focus on, and why?
Yeah, so two things. One, I saw becoming a lawyer and going to law school as a continuation of the Marine Corps in a way. When you raise your hand to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, to make that sacrifice, there's no greater calling, there's no greater honor than that. And so for me, when I got out of the Marine Corps, it felt like a continuation of that, to raise my hand and to promise to uphold a state constitution as a lawyer, as a practicing lawyer. Just to me, it was a continuation of that. And then more so just as a teenager, I worked summer jobs, and I remember doing a job, heating and air conditioning job at some guy's house in New Jersey, right? And I was just like, my God, what do you do? This is incredible. Like, to me, I had never seen anything like that, right? Coming where I come from, I just had never been exposed to the, and I don't even think at the time it was even that, like a mansion or anything, obscene like that. It was just, to me, it was a different life. And I remember he said he was a lawyer, and I'm telling you, Dan, I had no concept of what that meant to be a lawyer. I really didn't appreciate, going to undergraduate school and going to law school and taking the bar exam. I didn't appreciate it. But I think going into the Marine Corps, I said, all right, I got a couple of guideposts, maybe be a lawyer one day, and maybe do this. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was like, all right, I think that's the path I'm going to go down. And I think those two things, just being a lawyer, continuing on those values of being in the Marine Corps, and then also, some non-value related items as well.
Do you have a mentor?
Yeah, that's a great question. We talked about this. Before, and it's something that I've been ruminating on quite a bit. I think the concept of mentors, it's a pretty interesting one. I can't say, and this is not dismissive of mentors, I cannot say that I have a named mentor, somebody who that I go to and rely upon with great frequency on navigating my career and my life. However, there have always been, and this goes back to the theme or the point I was making earlier about seeking out those you want to become and try to emulate them. So I think all throughout my career, I've had folks that fit in sort of those mentor buckets or mentor categories. It could be those that I look up to, that I wanted to be like, whether or not I knew them personally or not. I mean, I'm sure we all have sort of those celebrity-like folks that we follow, that we see them as mentors. And then there are folks in our professional careers that we see and we think, all right, he's got it together, she's got it together. That's somebody I want to be like, just how they carry themselves. And then the flip side of that, there are folks that you meet and navigate, and you say, okay, that those are not the values, or that's not how I want to navigate my life, right? And so in an interesting way, they serve as mentors as well. So, for me, I wouldn't say it was mentors in the way we think of mentors. I think we place too much emphasis on mentors and not enough emphasis on accountability. And so now where I'm at in my career, in my life, personally and professionally, I'm looking more for accountability. I'm looking for someone who can help me navigate where I need to be held accountable. How can I continue to grow? How can I elevate my thinking? If I'm looking down the road 5, 10 years, where do I need to be? I still keep those group of mentors. I still kind of keep those categorized, but now it's more about accountability.
So in that kind of vein, are there certain challenges either are you looking in yourself to try to find challenges that you want to overcome, or are you looking out maybe into a professional landscape and saying, hey, those are some things that I would like to pursue in the next 5 years?
Yeah, it's at the start of the year, I've done this ever, even when I was in the Marine Corps. At the start of the year, every year, I map out my personal professional goals. I've got a couple of personal goals. It could be related to my health. It could be related to my personal growth generally, on the professional side as well. And I then try to understand what is going to prevent me from getting to those particular goals. And once I have that mapped, and I couple everything else in with that, the journaling and understanding, and understanding where I've been and where I'm going, I have this good data set, right? I have this good set of information that it's real, it's there, it's true, and only I can lie to myself about whether or not I'm holding myself to that. So I think we all need accountability partners. We all need someone who can hold us to those predefined goals that we have, and that's what I'm looking for. And then on the mentor front, it's still finding those folks, but changing the conversation a little bit, and really trying to bridge the gap between where I am, where I'm trying to get. Do these goals make sense to you? And am I holding myself accountable? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And while you were talking, I was actually thinking about my mind kind of actually went in a different direction, and I kind of wanted to get your insight of what the law profession looks like in a COVID environment. I mean, as you have a senior position at your firm,
Sure.
what the leadership looks like, what the day-to-day looks like, and then maybe how you see that moving forward or impacting not just your firm, but maybe other financial firms out there as well, and the law profession.
Yeah, sure. So, I would say, I've as I've caught up with folks over the summer, and just catching up with folks on how life is post COVID, I think one thing that has really stood out to me is just how grateful I am to have a skill set that I can do anywhere. Like my output, practicing, providing advice, guiding my firm, I could pretty much do it anywhere. Another sort of overarching theme in our industry in financial services is we by statute, by regulation, need to be seamless, need to have business continuity plans in place, need to be able to operate essentially 24/7, 365, no matter the circumstances. And so I think we as an industry were fortunate enough to have those requirements in place, and that enabled the industry, I think, to move fairly seamlessly to a remote environment. As it pertains to the law practice generally, I think for the most part, at least the lawyers that I've spoken to, other GCs and CCOs, other lawyers in the industry, most have just really done a tremendous job of helping their clients navigate through this complex situation, this unpredictable environment. And a lot of times that's what we as lawyers do, right? That's we take on that responsibility of helping our clients navigate these situations. A lot of us thrive in that, right? A lot of us thrive in you, Dan, coming to me and saying, listen, I don't know how COVID is going to impact my business. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make payroll. I don't know if I can pay my rent. I don't know if what this business is going to look like 6 months. Guide me. What's out there for me? What can I do? What type of relief? And I think there are a lot of good lawyers out there that are helping businesses and helping people navigate these situations. And It's kind of like, similar to being in the Marine Corps, right? Like it's, it's kind of a call to action, if you will, to kind of help folks navigate. So I think for the most part, the legal profession has done a pretty good job, and there's also a lot of great pro bono attorneys out there as well, helping folks, for free, try to navigate, COVID life, whether it's small businesses, whether it's, folks dealing with rent issues and that sort of thing.
So before we came on air, we had a conversation, and one thing that you mentioned that kind of stuck with me is about, veterans suffering from a lack of clarity after they get out of the military about who they're going to be. If you go from Sergeant Mendez to Chris,
Sure.
and all of a sudden you are in a different city, like you said, with a different group of friends, going to an office that seems unfamiliar to you. And you said another thing that I want to pair this kind of lack of clarity with. You also mentioned that it took 10 years to become an overnight success.
Sure.
Did you have, in that decade after the Marine Corps, did you have people who were maybe saying, "Hey, are you sure you want to do all this? Are you sure you want to tackle this?" And how do you stay so focused where you can have the clarity and you continue to move through those different hurdles over time?
Yeah, sure. So I think most people generally suffer from lack of clarity, not really understanding themselves, not really knowing what they really want. It's more profound, I think, post military service, the Marine Corps generally, for me at least, just what is it that you want, right? Like, what your life was like in the Marine Corps. Now you're out. Now you're thrust into the corporate America, for example. What is it that you're ultimately after? What is it that you want? And I love helping veterans and mentoring veterans and talking to veterans and trying to pull it all out of them. And you can do it with just simply asking questions. Why? Why do you want to do that? Why is that important to you? What will that bring to you? Where does that get you? And a lot of times, after about a 15-minute conversation, you realize, most folks don't really know. They lack clarity. You're going out and trying to seek a mentor. You're going out and trying to seek, a job. You're going out and trying to seek XYZ. And you think, you're going out for a particular reason, but ultimately it's not really the reason that you actually, thought of it to begin with. So you lack clarity. So, I think that's generally the first thing I try to advise folks. I get asked all the time, how did you get to this? How did you do that? And I think I was clear on what it was I was after, or at least where I was trying to go. And now I'm redoing that, right? Like now, as I'm approaching my 40s, I'm going through that again. Now I've got to sit down and kind of spend time. There's no rush, right? But now I'm trying to get additional clarity. Okay, what do I want my 40s and 50s and 60s to look like, and continuing that process. And then in terms of folks, I guess sort of doubting the faith, or at least questioning your sanity when you're spending 10 years of your life making those sacrifices. I would say 90% of the people, 90%. It's just no digs on anyone in particular. I just think it's our nature, right? I mean, I just think it's our nature. We as much as we love to see go-getters, I think a lot of times it makes us uncomfortable to see folks, because it makes us question who we are internally, and seeing someone else get after it, a lot of times can make us feel uncomfortable and ask uncomfortable questions. So all the time, personal, folks who doubted me, doubted my vision, doubted, that I would get to this point. I would say definitely professional, right? Like, why would you go to law school? It's never going to happen. No firm's going to hire you. All the time, right? All the time. And I just needed to, like I said, every day, just remind myself of the goals that I had set, and stay true to that vision.
If a veteran wanted to apply to your firm, or in the financial industry, a financial firm, what are some characteristics that leadership in those companies are looking to bring in from the veterans population?
Yeah, sure. Great question. And something that I think a lot of firms are spending a lot of time now thinking about is how do we bring more veterans into the fold? I think a lot of it is just continuing to carry on those same traits that were instilled in you in military service. I think across all branches, There's a certain way of conducting business and a certain level of expectations that are placed upon you. Continuing to do that. I think one of the more challenging parts is to be patient, right? Is to really be patient. There aren't as crystal clear defined bullet points on getting to that next rank, if you will, right? I mean, going from corporal to sergeant, we know what's expected of us. We know that if I do these certain things, it's essentially a guaranteed. Whereas in a corporate environment, a corporate setting, that's not always the case, right? It's a little bit more ambiguous in terms of how you navigate that. So, I think being patient is one of the biggest things you need to do, right? You already had, like you said earlier, the emotional intelligence, the sort of soft skills, if you will, continuing to develop those, continuing to work on those, but to be patient, right? Let a few annual cycles go by before you really judge where you're at in your career, right? So if you get an opportunity within financial services, just be a sponge, learn as much as you can, be patient, allow a few years to unfold, and then go back and reevaluate. And I think one of the bigger things that I learned, and I hope this is helpful, is that, I think when I got out of the Marine Corps, being a Marine and being a sergeant in the Marines was everything. And I think I carried it that way. And it was part of my daily lexicon of being a Marine. And while that was great, and being a Marine is great, that's not always the best thing when you're in the corporate setting, right? I mean, the corporate setting has its own unique, vernacular and lexicon. It has its own way of doing things, and you've got to assimilate to that. So I think, like being a lawyer, it's what I do. It's not who I am, right? Same thing being in the Marine Corps, right? Obviously, once a Marine, always a Marine. But that's just part of my story. It's just part of who I am. So recognize that as a veteran. That's just part of what you've done. That's just part of the total package, if you will. Get integrated and be patient.
So it's been a really incredible conversation. Just hearing about your professional growth after the military, your life growing up, and how you persevered through that to join the Marine Corps, serve your country, and then continue serving as you got your law degree. And I want to thank you for the incredible, life story that you've shared with us here, and just really kind of your insights about, for veterans, about how they can pursue it when they get out of the military. But I want to just ask you if there was anything that we didn't get to hit on today that you would like to leave us with.
Yeah, I would just say, lastly, just keep getting after it, right? Just keep doing it. Just keep working on your goals and what you're after. And then lastly, just thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it, right? I mean, I really think this is incredible what you're doing, and I appreciate you taking the time, you and your team. This is a great way to highlight the impact that veterans can make, and I'm grateful to our buddy Wes Gray for making the introduction to make this happen. So that's it. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Wes definitely deserves that shout out. We appreciate him coming on the program, and Chris, also thank you for being here today. That's the one thing that I love about this show. I love that you're able to come on and just pass down nuggets of wisdom about how you not just like go through your professional life, but how you approach your personal life and the impact that it's had on had on your career. So thanks again so much for being here and sharing your story with us.
You got it. It was a privilege. Thank you.
On behalf of Chairman George P. Bush and our staff at the Texas Veterans Land Board, my name is Dan Hamilton. We will see you back here on Monday. Thank you for joining.
Follow us on Instagram at Voices of Vets, on Twitter at Voice of Veterans, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Voices of Veterans. To hear more, please visit voicesofveterans.org. Join us in sharing the success stories of Texas veterans. Thank you for joining us for the Next Gen Warrior podcast.